Did you know that exercise is one of the single best things to improve your health? Well, of course you do, because you always listen to our podcast, and we say that at the beginning of every single podcast. But are you aware of how widely spread exercise can improve your health, from brain function to joint function and metabolic function? Today, I'm going to be interviewing Charlie about his new book that just came out yesterday, August 3rd, 2021, called The Exercise for Life Method, where Charlie has picked apart and read over 280 research papers about exercise and its potent impacts on your health. We're going to cue the intro song and then jump right into this conversation.
Welcome to the Exercise is Health podcast, where we're talking about exercise, health, and the interconnectedness of the two. We are your hosts, Charlie
and Julie,
and we will be coming to you every single week from our studio, Muscle Activation Schaumburg. Hey, welcome back, everybody, to the Exercise is Health podcast. We are your hosts, Charlie
and Julie,
and we're coming to you from our studio, Muscle Activation Schaumburg, here in Schaumburg, Illinois. Now, at Muscle Activation Schaumburg, we believe your health is your most valuable asset, and the single best thing that you can do to both boost and protect this asset is exercise. Specifically, exercise is geared towards building the health and function of your muscles. In fact, we feel so strongly about this that I wrote an entire book about this very subject. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. But if you're interested in picking up a copy of this book, you can get one simply by going to exerciseforlifemethod.com. Head there, and guess what? We already bought the book for you. All you have to do is pay for shipping and handling, and it will be sent to you right to your very door. You don't even have to go anywhere. Just enter your name, your address, your credit card info to pay for the shipping and handling, and it is headed your way. So to get this book and to get some awesome bonuses that we've included simply for purchasing the book, head to exerciseforlifemethod.com.
Awesome, Charlie. Well, I can't wait for our listeners to hear about what you've been working on in the back end. Now you've been talking about it openly on your social media and on Muscle Activation Schaumburg social media, but that wasn't always the case. And so just to give people some perspective, I'd love for you to start by giving us a general overview of the book. I mean, don't give away all the juicy details because I know everyone's going to want your book since it's free, but give us the general overview about what is this book, The Exercise for Life Method, talking about?
So the big overarching theme of the Exercise for Life method is to highlight first and foremost that how we are taught to exercise, how exercise is portrayed to us, and how it's marketed to us is leading to some severe issues within our society, from injuries and other issues that are being created, like physical issues that are being created within the population, to the majority of Americans just not participating in exercise. And so first, I highlight that issue and say, okay, well, look, this is a really big problem that needs to be addressed. And then I go into, okay, well, if exercise is actually supposed to be making us healthier, what does health look like throughout different areas of our body, and how does exercise go about improving the health and function of those areas? So I break it down into the health and function of your muscles, your joints, your cardiovascular system, your brain, and I go into not necessarily systems of your body, but things like longevity and chronic disease prevention and ability to just like recover from life and prevent injuries and things like that. And the whole point is that exercise is something that's supposed to build the health and function of your body, but how it's being done is not doing that for most people. So there needs to be a change that is made to how exercise is conducted and how it's being participated in. And I give some very practical tips that people can start employing to do exactly that, to exercise in a way that's appropriate for their body, that they can keep coming back to day after day, year after year, that not only will build the health and function of their body, but allow them to do all the things in life that bring them joy for as long as they want to do them.
I love that. And I think that one thing that we talk about a lot on our podcast, that if you're a listener, you're already exposed to this, is, trying to make exercise be able to be done by almost everyone, meaning so much of the industry is targeted towards people that are already exercising or that love exercising. But one thing that I think that your book highlights a lot, and you'll see as soon as you see the cover of this book, is how widespread the health benefits of exercise are. I think most of us think of exercise as like, oh, I do it to lose weight or because I'm not strong enough. And that's kind of the extent that we think. And we don't always normally relate those to health, but we do think of, oh, my brain needs to stay sharp. Did you know that exercise is a huge contributor to that? And all the other areas of the body and systems that you highlight. So I love that the book is going to be diving into that.
Thank you. I mean, look, walk into any grocery store in the checkout aisle, and there are magazines on magazines talking about, different results that you can get from exercise. But it's all focused around the wrong stuff. It's all focused around slimming down, and here's how you get your six pack, and here are the exercises you need for your toned legs and your summer body and everything like that. And the issue with that message is then that's what everybody believes that exercise is about. Like, if you're not slimming down, you're not getting the goal of exercise. And so if you're not going to be able to slim down, well, then why exercise, right? So that's a huge issue because exercise has nothing to do with slimming down. Exercise has nothing to do with losing weight. Exercise has nothing to do with toning your legs or firming your butt or whatever the heck else people want to do with their workouts, running on logs or, acting like a warrior or whatever we are told that, oh, these are the things that we need to do in order, for it to qualify as exercise. Exercise has nothing to do with that. There's only one goal of exercise, and that's what I talk about in the book. And that's what I want to highlight to people in the book and say, look, all the other stuff, that's a distraction from the one and only goal of exercise. And by pursuing this one and only goal of exercise with your workouts, not only will it dramatically change how you go about conducting your workouts and how you think about your workouts, but it will also improve your ability to do all the other stuff that you want to do with your workouts.
I love it. Well, Charlie, what was the reason you decided to write this book? I mean, we have a podcast, we have blogs, we, talk all the time on our social media about exercise. What inspired you to write this book?
So back in 2019, when we did the Schaumburg Health Summit, and I presented on how exercise helps us live longer. And so I was reading through a bunch of papers with that, and I realized that, wow, these mechanisms, these very kind of fundamental reactions that are happening within our body as far as how exercise actually helps us to live longer and helps our body to function better, it all kind of came down to one thing. And I thought, oh, that's really interesting. I mean, it makes sense that, this one thing would be highly involved with exercise, but I wonder if it goes beyond just helping us to improve longevity and helping us to live longer. And so when we got shut down last year with the pandemic, I had a lot of time to think and to, think about like the direction of our business and how we were going to kind of conduct our business going forward. Once we opened up, I thought, I would really like to write this book to try to get our message out there to more people. And so I started diving into, the research papers again and really looking at this one thing that I had found from the longevity perspective that exercise influence and see, okay, does this also influence other areas of our body, like our cardiovascular system, like our brain, like our ability to recover from stress, like our ability to have healthier joints? And these fundamental mechanisms just kept coming up. And so it's like, wow, this thing really is the key to not only like having a healthier body, but the whole key to what we should be focusing on with exercise and with our workouts. And so that kickstarted the process for me of writing the book. And it's been a really fun process because the more I dive into it and the deeper I go, the more it's like, yeah, this one thing is so incredibly important. And 99% of the entire fitness world is completely missing it because they're distracted with all the other stuff. So I'm really excited about this book because I think it gets this message out there in a way that it hasn't before. But I'm also really excited for people to see like, okay, we're told that exercise makes me healthier, but how in the world does it do that? And so I got to explore a lot of that as well.
I love it. I think that every time that we can get more focused with anything we do and know what the real goal of something is, things get so much easier. And a place where we get really bogged down with lack of focus and distractions and cool stuff is definitely the exercise world. I mean, you walk into a gym, even our gym here, there's these weird looking machines, there's brightly colored bands, there's a class with loud music going on. Well, not at our place, but you get the picture. And it's so confusing about, well, should I be doing Pilates or yoga or weight training or running or the treadmill class? It is so confusing. Mm-hmm. And so I feel like, at least in my perspective, whenever I'm doing anything, if I can keep the end goal in mind, like what am I actually trying to do here, then a lot of the fog and the lack of clear vision lifts, because you know what you actually are trying to do to change your health with exercise. And I love that about your book.
Thank you. Yeah, you hit it right on the head. If somebody reads it, it will provide clarity on what they actually need to be doing with their workouts to improve the health and function of their body. And like you were saying, there's so much confusion out there, so much noise about, well, this month it's the boot camp that you need to be doing. And then next month, now it's Zumba that you need to be doing. And then the next month, like you're saying, is Pilates. And it's like all this stuff, and it's all a distraction from what you actually need to be doing to improve your health with exercise.
But what's also cool is that you dive into a lot of the science behind what's happening. Because I don't know about you guys, when I'm working out, I have to be focused on what I'm doing, right? So that I don't get injured, I'm doing the right form, I'm moving in the right way. But what we never think about is what's happening inside your muscle. What's happening inside the systems of your body that's actually creating change. So I love that you dive into that. And side note, if you're not a science person, something cool Charlie did was he divided the book out into chunks so that if you're not a science person and you just want to get, the punchlines, you can still read the book. And if you want to know all the science and details, you can still read the book and just add those sections in, because we know not everyone wants to hear about different molecular processes that are happening in your body.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you bringing that up, because to me, it was really important to, explore the conversation deeper than just, oh yeah, if you exercise, your blood pressure lowers. Okay, but how? How does that actually happen? And then if we are going to make decisions with our exercise in order to get a specific result, like improving our memory, improving our insulin sensitivity, decreasing insulin resistance, like decreasing our blood pressure, well, then we need to know not just that exercise influences those things, but how it influences those things and what aspects of exercise influence those things. So then we can, like you've been saying, comes back to clarity, get this clarity on exactly what we need to be focusing on while we're exercising in order to get the results that we're wanting to get. So yeah, like you said, I have over 280 papers that I reference throughout the book, and you can find all of them at the end of the book. But if you're not interested in the nitty-gritty details, if you're not interested in all the science, you can still read the book cover to cover and have no issue understanding it, because like you said, I've sectioned out the more science-heavy areas, so you can just skip past those and you'll still get the entire story.
Love it. Now, I think you've been alluding to this, but I'm going to ask the question anyways, because it's a good question. When someone reads this book, what will they learn and what will they take away from reading this book? Because I think that, some people like to read, but most people like to read to enhance their life. So what are they taking away from reading this book?
So my first hope when somebody reads this is that they understand that there is a completely different option for exercise than what most of us are presented with. So if you don't like exercising, if you don't like the feel of a gym, if you don't like the way the fitness industry is constructed, exercise is still for you. And there's a whole world of exercise out there that you can participate in, but you need to know it exists first. And so, my first goal is kind of like exposing that world, exposing the world that you and I live in, Julie, where we're using exercise strictly to help people improve the health and function of their body. So I'm hoping people walk away with that perspective, a totally changed perspective on exercise. Secondly, I'm hoping that people walk away with a deeper understanding of the importance of exercising, that exercise is not something that is optional. if you truly want to be healthy, okay? One of the most scary statistics that I give in the book is that consistent low levels of physical activity and consistent below average levels of physical activity are more detrimental to health and longevity than heart disease, high blood pressure, diabetes, and smoking. And if you look at the leading causes of death, almost every single one of the top 10 can be linked back to some influence of heart disease, high blood pressure, diabetes, or smoking, which then leads me to the conclusion that physical inactivity, like not exercising, is not just a contributor to the leading causes of death, but it is the leading cause of death. And I know that's a really powerful statement. And it's like, wait, what do you mean? Like me not working out is the thing that's likely killing me? And in some ways, in a lot of ways, in almost every single way, yes. Okay. And I have enough evidence in the book to support that statement that I feel very comfortable saying it. But the reality is that most people think that exercise is optional for them. Exercise is something that they will do if they have the time today, or when they find the time, or if they feel like it. And the fact of the matter is that if you truly want to have a healthy and well-functioning body, exercise is a non-negotiable. And it's not like the third most important thing. It is the most important thing that you need to be doing. And so I hope people, maybe they're not like fully in that camp after reading the book, but I hope at least exposing them to that information and exposing them to that perspective throughout the book gets them to believe that, okay, yeah, exercise is a non-negotiable for me. This is something that I need to do. And then the last thing I hope people walk away with is an understanding of what they need to be doing when they exercise in order to improve the health and function of their body. And I provide a couple of different frameworks that people can follow for their workouts, not necessarily like specific exercises like on day 1 do this, day 2 do this, but just some overarching frameworks that say, okay, this is kind of like the bare minimum that you should be doing throughout your week in order to get the majority of the health benefits I described. And if you want to go full board and get as many of the health benefits I've described, this is the other framework. So here's like the bottom line, and here's like, okay, maybe like the top line that most people can strive for. Most people are going to find themselves somewhere in between. But if you're below the bottom, like strive to get there, strive to get to that bare minimum. And if you're between the bare minimum and the optimal, then you can kind of trend whichever way you want, but you're within the realm of like, yeah, you're definitely improving your health and function with your exercise.
Wow, that's a lot. I think one of the points you brought up that I think is so prevalent in today's society is that the lack of people thinking there's options for them. Mm-hmm. I was just thinking of an analogy where, if we all accept that vegetables are good for us to eat, and if the only vegetable that I ever exposed you to was Brussels sprouts, I mean, come on, 1% of the population likes Brussels sprouts, and those people are like the crazy health nuts. And you might think, well, Brussels sprouts are gross, so vegetables are gross since that's the only one I've ever been exposed to. And also, I don't want my life to be like labeled as health nut. I want to live my life and do other stuff. But what if I told you, hey, there's this whole other, variety of vegetables that you could eat, and we can try and see how you like them and see if they fit into your lifestyle. I think that's what people don't understand about exercise is they've been exposed to one certain type of Brussels sprouty exercise that they don't like and doesn't really fit their needs. Like, I'm not a Pilates person, but everyone says that's like the best thing for balance and strength and mobility. Okay. Well, that's fine. There's a whole other array of exercise that you probably have actually never seen in the gym unless you've been exposed to Charlie and I or one of our colleagues. The other thing you brought up that I love is how important exercise is. I remember 4 years ago when we started this podcast, we decided to call it the Exercise is Health podcast because, again, many people think that exercise could improve my health, but it's optional. Like, I could do that, but what many people don't know is that it's actually mandatory for you to be living your healthiest way. And so exercise is health. It's not exercise contributes to health.
Yes, exactly.
the last thing I love is that you give the framework of how to exercise. You know, so many people can get excited about concepts, and then the doing is the tough part. So I hope that people really, really can benefit from that piece.
Thank you. Yeah, I hope that's the kind of end takeaway that people are able to leave with when looking over those frameworks. It's not like, oh, this is a hard and fast thing that I need to do, but at the end of the day, use these as kind of a general template and then figure out what works for my body, what works for my lifestyle, and use them to guide me from there.
Okay, juicy one. You read a lot, you researched a lot, you dove into a lot of deep information while writing this book. What was one super surprising fact or piece of information or idea that you came across, or you came to the conclusion of after looking at a whole bunch of research, that you weren't expecting to find out, but you found out?
Okay, so here's something that I thought was really fascinating from the world of Alzheimer's, from the world of neurodegeneration, from the world of improving memory. Okay, so starting around the age of 55, the parts of our brain that deal with memory start to shrink. And it happens where we lose about 1 to 2% of the volume of those areas every single year. Well, some really neat papers showed that by exercising consistently, you can actually get enough growth, enough brain growth in those areas to completely combat that loss, where you can actually see 1 to 2% growth in brain volume in those areas of the brain every single year through exercising consistently. Now, when you look at people who have various forms of dementia, such as Alzheimer's, their loss of brain volume tends to be closer to 3 to 5% every year. So it hasn't necessarily been shown that exercise has been strong enough to get a 3 to 5% brain growth. But when you look at the numbers, if exercise can improve brain volume 1 to 2% every year, but somebody's losing 3 to 5% every year, well, by exercising a lot and continuously, that can take somebody from what might be considered more of an Alzheimer's state of like a 3 to 5% loss every year and put them back into more of a normal state, which might be a 1 to 2% loss every year. So I thought that was just a really powerful testament to the importance of exercising consistently, exercising appropriately for your body, and exercising year after year after year after year. That was one of the big stats that really jumped out to me, is like, oh wow, like this whole idea of once you get Alzheimer's, it's just all downhill from there and there's nothing you can do about it. Actually, there appears to be a lot that can be done. And I go into even more shocking details in the book about this, but just how powerful exercise can be at helping to improve the volume of the brain, as well as helping to improve the function of the brain, even in people that are suffering from some form of dementia.
Wow, that's a crazy information, because I think obviously you and I, and this book are biased towards exercise and how it impacts your health. But I think too, when you get general information from, the media or the news, or even when you read it in a book, it's not biased towards exercise. And so what happens often is that the role of exercise is undershared. So I love that. And that is potent stuff that exercise can do for your brain health, which again is an area of our body and health of our body that we don't really relate to exercise, but is highly related to exercise. All right, Charlie, all of our listeners are excited about the book now. And I'm curious, who should be reading this book? Who is the intended audience for your book?
So the intended audience is definitely like the exercise curious to exercise consumer. All right. If you are an exercise professional or a professional exerciser, or if you're a medical professional, like you'll still find value in the book, but really the intended audience is for people who are like, okay, I know I should be exercising, but I'm not super interested in exercising because I'm not interested in losing weight. Like that's what they relate to exercise. So I'd consider them like exercise curious, like, okay, well, what else can exercise do for me? As well as the exercise consumers, the people who are like, yeah, you know what? Like, I like exercising and, I want to know everything that it can do for me. And so like those two groups, the exercise curious and the exercise consumers, is really who the book is written for. And then, like we've been talking about, I go into a lot of the science details which don't need to be read and are clearly highlighted as far as like, yeah, you can skip over this if you want, but if somebody is interested in learning more or diving deeper into those details, there's an opportunity to do that too.
Amazing. I am personally excited for all of you to receive your book and receive the copy of your book, because your body is such an important vessel for you to be taken care of, for you to be prioritizing. Your health matters. And one of the most potent things that you can be doing all by yourself without the use of, your insurance or going to the doctor or medication is to be consistently exercising and consistently putting your health first. So I hope that you guys all get your copy of this book so that your health can be of minimal burden to your life and your lifestyle for as long as possible. Charlie, how can our listeners get a hold of your book? And I know there's multiple versions, so tell us about that as well.
So all you have to do to get your free copy of the book is go to exerciseforlifemethod.com. Like I said in the introduction, we've already paid for the book. All we ask is that you pay for the shipping and handling to make sure that it arrives. So you pay for the shipping and handling, and the physical version of the book will be sent to you. If you prefer not to have a physical version, but you prefer to have a digital version, an ebook, then you can purchase that instead. Both of those options are right there. You can also purchase both the ebook and the physical book. And as a bonus, I also recorded the audiobook version, which you can get a hold of as well. So audiobook, ebook, physical book, they're all available at exerciseforlifemethod.com. And the ebook is also available on Amazon if you prefer to purchase through Amazon as opposed to supporting small businesses. But if you do decide to purchase through our website, we have some really cool bonuses that we are attaching to the book that you can get only through exerciseforlifemethod.com. So if you do want to support small businesses and you do want to purchase through our website, you'll get 5 bonuses that are completely free to you, totally included with the book, that you will get instant access to as soon as you make your purchase.
So who do you know that needs to hear this episode? Who do you know that needs a copy of Charlie's The Exercise for Life Method book? Remember, this can be someone that is exercise curious, liking to exercise, but not sure if they're like gung-ho on training for the triathlon or losing 100 pounds, but they still want to exercise to improve their health. Share this episode with them so that they can hear about the Exercise for Life method, or you can simply share the link to the book landing page so that they can learn about the Exercise for Life method book. Remember, this book is completely unique and it is covering some topics that you are not going to want to miss. So definitely go to exerciseforlifemethod.com to claim your copy today.
And when you go there, you will also notice that the foreword was written by none other than the lovely Julie Cates. And I'm very grateful that she was willing to write the foreword for this book, because you get to learn part of her story and how this approach to exercise has changed her health and changed her body for the better. So check it out at exerciseforlifemethod.com. This podcast is for information purposes only. The statements and views on this podcast are not medical advice. This podcast, including Julie and Charlie Cates, disclaim responsibility for any possible adverse effects from the use of information contained herein. Opinions of guests are their own, and this podcast does not endorse or accept responsibility for statements made by guests. This podcast does not make any representations or warranties about guest qualifications or credibility. This podcast may contain paid endorsements or advertisements for products or services. Individuals on this podcast may have a direct or indirect financial interest in products or services referred to herein. If you think you have a medical issue, consult a licensed physician.